Hey friends, it's Miss Keenon with the Wheatley lesson for this week. I'm actually so excited to be here with you guys online teaching this lesson. So let's get started. Today, our goal is to be able to contrast important points in text on the same topic. We will be looking at two stories. Our two stories are the story of Ruby Bridges and Ruby Bridges Goes to School. Now, I know you're probably wondering, Miss Keenon, what does it mean to contrast something? So I got the answer for you. Unlike comparing when you're looking at the similarities of two things, when you're contrasting something, you're looking at the differences of the two things. Now, in order to contrast important points in text on the same topic, you must consider three things, or you have three different steps. The first step is, what are both texts mostly about? So you're going to ask yourself, after I read both texts, what were both of the texts about? Now, number two, you're going to find the important points in each text. So after figuring out what each text is about, you're going to go back and you're going to look at the important points of each text. Now, the third thing you're going to think about is what important points are only in one text. So, after looking at both texts and pulling out the details of the important points of each text, you're going to look at one text and you're going to say, okay, I see this detail is here, but this detail is not in the other book. You're going to look at one text and see what important details are in this one text and what important detail is in the other text. Scholars, I have a question. What will you do when you reread to contrast important points in two texts on the same topic? What will you do when you reread to contrast important points in two texts on the same topic? What will you do? If you said anything like, I will find important points in each text and tell which one appears in only one of the texts. If you said something like that, then you're a super scholar and that's exactly what you do. All right, my friends. So now that we know how to contrast important points in a text on the same topic, Miss Keenan is going to model for you. So, our question is, what topic do both texts share and how do you know? What topic does both texts share and how do you know? So Miss Keenan has her two texts here. Got Ruby Bridges Goes to School and then also the story of Ruby Bridges. So give Miss Keenan a few seconds and I'm going to skim my text. This is what everybody should be doing at home now. After reading my text, I realized that I'm probably going to have to go through my three thinking steps in order to figure out this question. So now, our first thinking step is, what are both texts mostly about? After reading my text and also looking at the illustrations, I noticed that they both were about Ruby Bridges and her journey and her life. So I can say that both texts are mostly about Ruby Bridges. Thinking step number two. Find the important points in each text. Now, after reading, I found two important details, one from each book. The first detail came from the story of Ruby Bridges. It says, the white people in the neighborhood would not send their children to school. When Ruby got inside the building, she was all alone, except for her teacher, Mrs. Henry. There were no other children to keep Ruby company, to play with and to learn with and to eat lunch with. Now, my second detail came from Ruby Bridges Goes to School. It says, Miss Henry and I were both asked to be on a TV show. That was the first time we had seen each other in many, many years. All right, my friends. So now I found the important detail in each text. Now, our third thinking step wants us to find out what important points are only in one text. But we already took care of that because we pulled one detail from one book and then we pulled the other detail from the other book. So we've already got through step 3. All right, friends. Now back to the question. Our question is, What topic do both texts share, and how do you know this? Now, after going through our thinking steps, we realized that both texts share the topic of Mrs. Henry, who was Ruby Bridges' teacher. How do we know this? Because we looked through the text. We actually read the text. We also looked at the illustrations of both, and we see a picture of Miss Henry there. And then we see a picture of Miss Henry here. That's how we know that both texts share the same topic of Mrs. Henry. Now that Miss Keenon has modeled for you, I want you to model for Miss Keenon. Your question is, how are the illustrations in the text different? How are the illustrations in the text different? Remember, when contrasting two texts on the same topic, you must think about three things. The first thing you must think about is, what are both texts mostly about? The second thing you're going to think about is, find the important points in each text. The third thing you're going to think about is, what important points are only in one text? Miss Keenan is going to give you a few minutes to model this for me. I'm going to hold up an illustration of each book, and those are the two illustrations you're going to be contrasting. Go. Your question was, how are the illustrations in the two texts different? How are the illustrations in the two texts different? So if you said something like, when looking at the story of Ruby Bridges, if you said something like, it's a painting, there's lots of people in the background, there's lots of colors, and Ruby looks brave, then that was awesome. Sending you all the shine and the love. Now, in Ruby Bridges Goes to School, if you said something like, this is a real life photograph of Ruby Bridges in history, it's in black and white, then you're awesome. That was amazing. If you guys were able to tell me details about both of the illustrations and tell me how they're different, then that means that you met today's goal. You're able to contrast important points in a text on the same topic. And I am more than happy, and I am more than proud, and I am more than excited about the continued success you're going to have in Wheatley Online. Thank you guys so much. Remember, read every night. Love you guys. Bye.